Yo, what up guys, I'm Sammy and welcome back to the Soul Drop. And Nike and also Devin Booker have officially unveiled the Nike Book 2, right? So if you guys didn't know, the Book 1 actually came out somewhere around February of 2024. And right now it's like November 2025, so pretty much 2 years ago, this shoe came out, which is absolutely insane. Also, if you guys see some of the colorways, when it first came out, I believe it was like 140 bucks, right? Retail for 140 bucks. But then some of the new colorways that Nike's releasing are like 170 bucks. Like that new purple colorway, maybe it's like a special colorway or something like that. But like also some of the colorways are like 150, 160 bucks. So I really don't like how Nike's constantly increasing the price. That kind of sucks. But also we have some other leaks of shoes as well. So before we get into the book 2, like we know the release date and like the tech as well, let's go over first of all the AE3s. We already know what the AE3 is gonna look like. So shout out to Soul Retriever as well as Kick's Own News. But we have to be careful because remember when the AE1 came out, and then right after it came out, I think like a month or two after, we already had a leak of the AE2, but then the AE2 leak was actually incorrect. We had some like samples and they actually look like real shoes, like like they finished designing it and that was kind of like the shoe. And it had Anthony Edwards' logo on the actual shoe as well. So it was like, oh, that's probably his shoe. And also, you guys remember there was a leak of his budget shoe, which never came out. So I don't know if they're gonna ever release that. But anyways, we had that shoe and then it had a crazy plastic cage and stuff like that, but that was actually not the shoe. And then a little bit, like a couple months before the AE2 actually released or came out, we actually had a leaked image of the actual AE2, right? So we don't know if this is actually the AE3, but it might be like a sample design. It doesn't even look like there's no real picture of it. It's not an actual product. It's not an actual shoe yet. It's just like a rendering. It looks like a drawing almost, but it might be like a sample, you know? But it does look like an Anthony Edwards shoe, right? So first of all, it seems like they're keeping like the heel clip from the AE1 in the AE3. Like if you see the back of the shoe, but we only have a lateral side of the shoe. Like we don't have an outsole picture or a medial side. But yeah, first of all, also, this shoe looks like it might have a drop-in midsole. Maybe that would be absolutely freaking amazing. Because if you look at the actual shoe, there's no exposed midsole. You know what I mean? So usually if there's an exposed midsole, then it does have a drop-in midsole. Like you can see that the upper goes all the way down and it kind of connects to the outsole almost. I mean, it's not 100% of the case, of course, but with this kind of design, it can have a drop-in midsole, which would be absolutely amazing. In terms of drop-in midsole, the only other shoe that's ever had a drop-in midsole that I can think of right now from Adidas, because I feel like Adidas never uses a drop-in midsole, but the only shoe that's ever had it is the Harden Volume 5, and the Harden Volume 5 was terrible for the cushion because, I mean, the overall shoe was terrible because it was so stiff and clunky. It's basically a brick. But if they use like Light Boost or maybe, I don't know, maybe Light Strike Pro for the drop-in midsole foam would be kind of cool too, but anyways, for the cushion, we don't know, but they're probably going to be using a blend of Light Boost and Light Strike. That's what they've been doing for the AE2 and the AE1 and also pretty much all the Hardens, you know what I mean? And then the Adonis shoe 7 is using like a Light Strike Pro. So yeah, that would be cool. But again, we don't really know if that's going to be the case. As far as the traction or the outsole goes, we can just see some lines kind of going diagonally a little bit for the outsole, but we don't really know the actual outsole pattern. But the most striking feature about the shoe, of course, is that lateral cage. So it literally looks like an arrow, you know what I mean? And we got what? How many? We got 4 arrows on the lateral side of the shoe. And that's acting as a sidewall, so that'll have really good lateral containment, lateral support. But it doesn't look like a super stiff plastic, or I don't think they're going to be using a super stiff plastic, you know, because if you look at the AE1 also was pretty soft, kinda, you know, and then the AE2, once you break it in, is actually kind of soft as well, even though it is really stiff once you first get it, right? So I'm sure those little plastic, or actually maybe because it is a little like plastic piece, like a really thin one, maybe they made it a little bit thicker so that you get a little bit extra support. But with the extra space in between the actual plastic pieces, it'll probably have a little bit more kind of like movability, you know what I mean? Maybe it'll be a little bit softer, not feel as stiff. I don't know, we'll have to see on that, of course. And I guess on the, like at the tip of the toe, we have an extra kind of like little spike there as well, right? But for the actual material, I can't really tell, you know what I mean? It's just, again, it's just a rendering, but overall, it actually looks pretty nice. Another thing I don't really like about it is the the flat shape of the actual shoe. You know what I mean? Like, that's one thing I didn't really like about the AE2 too much. It's a little bit of a slapper, but also another thing is hopefully the shoe is really lightweight, or it's not super lightweight, but like just lighter, you know, because the AE1 is like 15 ounces, the AE2 they shed off a lot of weight, but still like 14 ounces, which is still freaking heavy. So if they could go into like the 12-ounce range, that would be nice, because they are using a lot less plastic, it seems like, in the AE3, but I have my doubts. It'll probably be around high 13, 14-ounce range, you know what I mean? So in terms of how it looks though, I feel like it looks pretty cool, you know what I mean? I feel like the designer for Anthony Edwards shoes, he does a good job. So there is the AE3. Also, another little update for you guys. I'm sure all of you guys already know this because it's huge news, but Under Armour and Steph Curry are splitting. So I guess the contract is up and Steph Curry is becoming a free agent for his shoes, of course, but he still owns the Curry brand, of course. So I'm not 100% sure, because I'm seeing a lot of posts where they're saying like he's gonna keep his logo, but also some other posts were saying like Under Armour is gonna keep the trademark for both of his logos. You guys remember the SE with the 30 and then his new one with like the 3-pointer or whatever? So I'm not 100% sure on that, but you know, first of all, Steph Curry was seen playing in the Kobe 6, or he was warming up in them, and then in the actual game, he was wearing his actual shoe, the Curry Series 7. But also, there are some rumors. They're just rumors, but I just saw this post, and apparently he's close to signing a deal with Nike for a couple $100 million, which is absolutely insane. That's just crazy, you know what I mean? But as far as like a signature shoe goes, that takes a lot of work in terms of like actual production. If they go into that, like is Steph Curry, is he gonna retire soon because he's old? So like, I don't know how lucrative that deal would be with Nike, but I mean, it's Steph Curry though. You know what I mean? But if he does retire soon, in like a couple years, like he's only gonna have a couple signature shoes maybe, or is he just gonna wear Nikes? We're not 100% sure on that either. We don't know all the details, but again, imagine a Steph Curry Nike shoe. That's kind of insane, you know, because I mean, like for the past like 4 or 5 models and all of his Flowtros, man, Under Armour and Curry brand, I mean, like I mean basically Under Armour has been kind of very, they're not innovative in my personal opinion, you know what I mean, in terms of design, and just literally the exact same thing. So if Nike gets a hold of him, that would be absolutely insane, and his shoes would probably sell out very quickly, right? But anyways, let's get it started off with the book 2. So yeah, we got the book 1 here, right? We got 2 colorways of the book 1 and also 2 different upper materials, and the book 1 was pretty dang like nice. But then when I first got this shoe, I really didn't like it too much, because first of all, the traction, it was translucent and picked up a lot of dust, and also this upper, for some reason, it's just like not as supportive feeling, right? But then I got this leather colorway in, and this leather is a little bit more supportive, and also the traction with the solid rubber was just way better for dust. So yeah, I actually kind of really like playing the book 1 after I got this colorway. So yeah, the book 2 looks very similar in design, as in like it looks more like a old school kind of like casual shoe, you know what I mean? And Nike gave us a lot of like insight on how the actual shoe was designed. So if you guys didn't know, the main designer or the head of design is Ben, right? So Ben actually started designing with Nike, and the first big shoe that I know of that he started with is the Kyrie 4, right? So Leo Chang started with the Kyrie, well, I mean, Leo Chang pretty much designed a lot of the KDs and also some Kobe's, I believe. But then he started with the Nike Kyries, right? The Kyrie 1, 2, and 3, and then Ben came on with the Kyrie 4 and pretty much designed the entire Kyrie shoe line. And also, I believe he designed the book 1 as well, and the Jaws, you know what I mean? Like Jaws signature shoe line. So he's a huge designer over at Nike, right? So yeah, he explains how he actually designed the book 2 and also like where the inspiration comes from. So it literally says, Devin Booker's second signature shoe, the Nike Book 2, represents a modern take on basketball's most classic style. So I think Devin Booker, he just likes old school stuff. And it says meticulously fine-tuned to perform both on and off the court. So it's inspired by skateboarding, vintage cars, and classic Nike sportswear, right? So it's supposed to have a low profile design which features a 4-foot air zoom unit. So if you guys didn't know, the book 1 had a heel zoom unit that was top loaded, and it was actually kind of nice, you know what I mean? When I was like standing around and also playing, I can feel a little bit of compression, a little bit of bounce in the heel. Nothing crazy though. But yeah, in the book 2, they're switching it to the 4-foot. So it reminds me of the Freak 1s. You guys remember the Zoom Freak 1s where the heel zoom unit, I believe it was double stacked, right? That was kind of nice. And then they started putting it in the forefoot for the zoom unit. So that's what it kind of reminds me of. But also here for the Book 2, we have a Cushlon 3.0 midsole, which is pretty dang nice. But I feel like every single Nike hoop shoe is using Cushlon pretty much, you know? It's supposed to have a plush foam sock liner. So very similar to the Book 1. I mean, the Book 1 literally had one of the most comfortable kind of like ankle areas, you know, that any hoop shoe had. You know, also for the tongue is pretty well padded, but especially here in the back of the shoe is super duper plush, very, very thick, you know what I mean? And it says it's a modernized molded upper. And also the Book 2 is supposed to release or be available next year, January. So January 2026. And another thing that Book says is that a big thing for me was feeling the court and being a bit lower to the ground, which is kind of funny because the Book 1 had freaking really good court feel, you know what I mean? The Book 1 had amazing court feel actually. It's just a tiny bit higher up off the ground than like the Sabrina 3, you know? But the Sabrina 3 has one of the best court feels that you can get. You know what I mean? So I'm guessing maybe if they're saying the Book 2 is lower to the ground than the Book 1, then it'll probably have a similar feel in terms of court feel as the Sabrina 3 and like the Jaw 2 and the Sabrina 2, you know what I mean? And like the Luka 4s, which all have amazing court feels, right? But yeah, in terms of court feel, comparing it to the Book 1, the Book 1 here in the forefoot is pretty comparable. I would say the Sabrina 3 is a little bit lower to the ground, but very similar, right? But the biggest difference for me is the heel. The Book 1 is a little bit higher up off the ground. The Sabrina 3 is lower to the ground here in the heel. And also the Book 1 has a little bit more of an offset compared to the Sabrina 3. Those are kind of like the differences, right? But yeah, that's what he says, right? It's lower to the ground, which is kind of funny. And also in terms of the colorways, obviously they're inspired by, you know, where he plays with like the orange, like the sunset, you know, the desert and stuff like that. But also the overall shoes design is inspired by the Air Zoom Spiridon. So I don't really see a whole lot of resemblance besides kind of like the swoosh. The swoosh is pretty much identical in terms of like the size and like how it's designed and how it looks. And also kind of like the actual straps, you know, the eyelets, the laces go through some eyelets and they kind of like turn into straps that go down all the way into the outsole. So that's what it looks like in the Book 2 as well, right? But also the actual outsole, it's supposed to be a durable outsole. That's what it says. It's supposed to be also inspired by the Air Force One, which actually does look very, very similar. But I also don't really like how they are starting off with translucent rubber. Like, I feel like Nike, when they release a shoe, every single freaking shoe has a translucent rubber. It's like, dude, like like the Sabrina 3s, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that because also the Book 1, they did the same thing, and the Book 2, it seems like they're doing the same thing as well. But yeah, it's a very, it's inspired by the Air Force One outsole design, but you can see it's like a sun, obviously for the Suns. And, but it does have that Air Force One design in there as well, which I think is pretty cool, right? Hopefully it has nice traction, but again, with the colorways, the first two colorways that are coming out, it's a translucent rubber, so hopefully we don't have a repeat of the Book 1 where it did pick up a lot of dust, right? Also for the cushion, you can see an exposed midsole, but that's probably like a carrier, so it's gonna be a little bit stiffer. And then the core is probably gonna have that Cushlon 3.0 midsole or foam, and then we're gonna have a forefoot zoom unit, right? We're not 100% sure if it's top loaded or bottom loaded. It's probably gonna be top loaded, but I feel like they should have had, or they should have gave us like a forefoot and heel zoom unit. You know what I mean? Like the Book 1 with the top loaded zoom unit in the heel was super nice. And then adding another one here in the forefoot would have been super nice as well. And also, what's the shape? What's the size of the forefoot zoom unit as well? You know what I mean? Like, is it going to be like the Sabrina 3 and like, you know, the PG 1s where it's like a half circle here? Or is it going to be like the Tatum 4s where it's like the entire forefoot is that zoom unit, you know? So we don't know yet, but I'm guessing it's probably going to be the exact same as like the Sabrina 3, you know? Which would be a little bit disappointing because I feel like every single shoe has that, but yeah, it's also a little bit of a change there. Also for the upper, like if you look at the actual pictures, it looks terrible. It looks like a synthetic material. They're saying it's a molded upper, but it looks like it's gonna crease like crazy, guys. So I don't know what's going on with Nike with that, because also with the LeBron 23, it did the same exact thing. You know what I mean? They're giving us that plastic material. It creases like crazy. The Tatum 4 has really crappy upper quality as well. So I feel like, you know, Nike is kind of You know, in terms of performance and how the shoe performs, they're all very, very solid, but like the quality of the upper is definitely not nice. And the Book 2 also does not look super nice here. Also, again, like just like the Spirit-Ons, you can see the outline. It's almost like embossed, you know, of those straps going down into the outsole. So it's probably gonna have a little bit more support. And then of course for the tongue, there's no mesh. So this shoe is probably gonna be super hot as well. You know what I mean? Like if you look at the actual like Sabrina 3 and like a lot of other shoes, the bottom of the tongue has like a mesh material, but the Book 2, it's just a synthetic material, you know what I mean? So that kind of sucks as well. In the heel, it also says chapter 2, you know? And then here in the Book 1, it says chapter 1, which I think is really cool. Obviously, it's like a book, you know, chapter 1, chapter 2, so that's really cool. But it doesn't look like they have the pull tab with the pages for the book here in the Book 2. You know, the Book 1 had that as well, obviously. One thing I don't like about it is that it looks very, very, very flat. Like super duper flat. Like if you look at the Book 1, there's a little bit of curve here in the forefoot, so it wasn't terrible. But the Book 2 seems a little bit flatter, which I'm sure a lot of people don't really mind. But I like to have a nice little curve here, also in the heel. But yeah, overall the aesthetics, it looks pretty nice. I would say I like the Book 1 a little bit better because I don't know. It looks like the Air Force 1. The Air Force 1 looks really, really nice. Also, another difference is that the Book 1 was a little bit more of a mid top. You know what I mean? It's pretty much a low top, but a little bit more of a mid top because it comes up a little bit higher up on the ankle bone. But for the Book 2, it seems more like a low top, right? Devin Booker was wearing the Book 2 in today's game, and it looked like on foot, it looks really freaking nice. And also on the upper, there doesn't seem, or at least in this colorway, there doesn't seem to be any crease marks. So, but on the orange colorway, it looks like a different material. So maybe they'll have different materials in the Book 2, just like in the Book 1 with these different colorways as well. So yeah, I'm pretty dang excited about these. Again, I don't know why Nike took so long. I feel like Nike's kind of late on their releases, like after like a year and a half to 2 years around there, which kind of sucks. Also, another piece of news is that Cade Cunningham apparently is supposed to have a signature shoe coming out with Nike as well next year, or in the distant future. He actually signed a deal with Nike for like 6-7 years, which is kind of insane. I don't know why. Like, why is he getting a hoop shoe? You know what I mean? But anyways, tell us what shoes you're excited about down in the comments section below. I'm very, very excited about if you know Nike's gonna give Curry a signature shoe, and a Nike Curry shoe is absolutely insane. Also, again, very, very excited about the Book 2. So anyways, that about concludes this video. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.